Greetings, Commanders, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. I have been asked on several occasions by a couple of people how I do certain things moving around the galaxy, specifically related to being able to land in a fairly reckless manner without screwing things up too much, and also how to quickly drop out of Supercruise, getting to a destination. These are generally, or the Supercruise part is a generally well-known thing, but a lot of people just never come across it because they don't think about looking for that information, so I'm going to put it here in a video. So let's talk first about maneuverability as far as how I do things in the game. I have gone through an evolution of the way that I control things in the game. Initially, I wanted to have a dual joystick setup where I had my right hand controlling my pitch, yaw, and roll, basically where my ship is pointing, and my left hand was thrust, left, forward, backwards, left, right, up and down. Up and down. So right hand for looking, left hand for moving, because it's very similar to the way that you would do it if you were doing like a first-person shooter kind of thing, where your right hand controls where you're pointing and your left hand's doing the WASD thing. Well, that's a little bit of a cumbersome thing to have to set up every time. Having two joysticks on your desk takes up a lot of space, and then you still need access to the keyboard, and it's just a bunch of stuff. So I evolved that to where I make it now. I have my right hand still on a joystick, and so that looks me around, and the triggers and all that stuff, everything's standard. And I basically use my left hand as I would in a first-person shooter, WASD style. So I would have W for forward, D for backwards. A is thrust left, D is thrust right, and then I have space and shift. Space is up, shift is down. And that's pretty much what I do. So we're going to go ahead and test that out here for a second. Let's launch here. So when I first start off, I launch and then I immediately get rid of my landing gear. I have my landing gear set to the control key because it's right there next to everything else that I'm doing. And then if I want to go left, I hold the A key down. If I want to go right, I hold the D key down, forwards, backwards, space for up, shift for down. And then I can just move around at will. I'm holding space right now to get myself going in the direction that I want to go. And once you get used to, what each of the keys does, I start holding space because I want to go back in the other direction. And then once I start pointing in that direction, I start pressing the A key or the W key to start going forward. And then we head out, right? So that's basically how moving around works. It's very intuitive if you've played a lot of regular games that do mouse and keyboard, WASD moving around kind of stuff. It's very intuitive for that. And then you just get used to having the control key being your landing gear key, and that's all set. You get out of the landing pad. Now, the other thing that I typically tend to do is I'm pretty impatient and I want to hurry up and get out of the station. And the cool thing about the boost key, or the boosting of with your ship, is that it immediately tries to cancel out all other motion and thrusts you forward. So if you time it right, even if you're moving in a direction that you don't want to be moving, if you point yourself where you want to go, press the boost key, it'll generally get you to start moving. So I generally try to boost myself through the slot because I'm impatient and I want to hurry up and get out. You need to be looking and making sure that there's no ships in the way, because if you hit them, you're going to get a fine and you're going to do a bunch of damage to your ship or your shields or whatever. So just try to pay attention to that. Try to look through the slot as you're doing it. And then so yeah, what you would normally do is you'd be down here at a pad. You'll immediately start going up and forward and start approaching the slot, and then when you think you're ready, you press the tab key and out you go. And that's it. So that's kind of the basic maneuvers. The only other thing that I tend to do is you can see that my throttle moves in increments of 25%. I have my X and Z keys set for my throttle, and the way you set that up is you go over to your controls for your ship, and then you go over to the flight throttle. Flight throttle helps to click the right one, and you set the throttle increments to 25%, and then I have my X key for increase and Z key for decrease. And all you have to do is just remember where you have your throttle set, or just look down there and you can set your throttle to all the various different speeds that you want to go. All right, so that's moving around. We'll talk about landing when we come back in for a landing. Next up, we're going to talk about Supercruise. So let's go ahead, hop into Supercruise and see if we can find somewhere to go that will allow us to get a fair bit of distance away from the station here. Let's see. Let's get rid of all of this. Is there anything decently far away? Unfortunately, everything that's reasonably far away is all ground stations. So we'll just have to. We'll talk about Supercruise Overdrive now. Let's go to here. So Supercruise Assist is something I use on a very regular basis. If you don't know how to use it, it basically lines you up. As long as you have your throttle set in the blue zone, it will line you up, and even if you move away from it, as long as you're kind of relatively close, it'll pull you back in and keep you going. The trade-off with Supercruise Assist is that it generally it takes a lot longer to get there than if you're going full throttle, but if you go full throttle, you lose the assist function. So what you generally want to do is you want to go full throttle until you get to around 7 seconds of ETA. So if you can look at the information. We have Shinrada Desra AB1, that's the destination that we're heading to. We have the distance in light seconds, so 2600 light seconds. And then we have the ETA, that's the time it's going to take us to get there. As we get faster and faster, it's going to, the ETA is going to get lower and lower. And what we're looking for is we're trying to get to, we're going to go full throttle until we get our ETA down to about 7 seconds. Now, it's going to take a lot longer to do that in regular Supercruise. So if you have a frame shift drive with Supercruise Overdrive activated, you can just press the same key that you use for boosting in regular flight, and you're typically going to want to go for if you're if you're over 1,000 light seconds, you're going to want to bring the ETA down to about 3 seconds. We'll cover overdrive here in just a minute. I don't have enough time to cover it right now. With the distance that we're going to go. But for regular Supercruise Assist, you're just going to go straight. You're just going to keep going full throttle until you hit right around 7 seconds. Okay, right around 7 seconds, and then you pull it back to regular Supercruise Assist, and it will start slowing you down, and it will itself adjust your throttle to the point where you're getting right down to that 7-second mark. Now, gravity and other things may end up causing you problems. As you can see, it's not dropping me down to the 7 seconds, so I'll push it up to full throttle until it hits 7 seconds, and then pull it back down to the regular thing. And if it goes up to 8, 9, just keep tapping that throttle forward to keep it moving, to fight through the extra gravity that you're experiencing for wherever it is that you're going. But 7 seconds is the magic number when it comes to the Supercruise Assist, because that's where it's trying to put you. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily the most fun way of, it's not necessarily the fastest and most optimal way of getting where you're going. So let's talk about Supercruise Overdrive. We're going to get rid of all of these extra things because we're going to head back to Jameson Memorial, get ourselves locked onto that destination. Now, the Supercruise Overdrive is extremely nice to have because it gets you that whole process that we can do in a couple of seconds versus the minute or more that it took us to get there in regular Supercruise. You basically press the boost button just like you did like we did in the station there, and it puts you into Supercruise Overdrive mode, which makes you go much faster. So the rules of thumb that I have right now as far as turning off Supercruise Overdrive is if you're less than 1,000 light seconds, or if you're less than 1,000 light seconds from your destination when you turn it on, you're going to want to keep Supercruise Overdrive on until you reach about 10% of the distance with your speed. So if you're 700 light seconds away, you want to turn it on, and then once you get to 70C on your speed, you turn it off, and that will generally get you to right around the 7 seconds of ETA that your Supercruise Assist needs to control itself to the target. If you're between about 1,000 and 3,000 or 4,000 light seconds away, what you want to do is you want to hold the Supercruise Overdrive on until you get to about 3 seconds of ETA, and it's gonna change depending on what ship you have. For this ship, I generally 3 seconds of ETA is generally pretty good. For some of the non-Supercruise Overdrive ships, you're gonna need to tinker around with it. You might need 5 seconds. You might need 4 seconds. It just kind of depends because each ship reacts a little bit differently. This Mandalay that I'm flying, it decelerates out of Supercruise overdrive very aggressively. So I'm able to go all the way up until about 3 seconds for anything between 1 and about 3 or 4,000 light segments. For anything beyond that, you kind of got to play it by ear. The distance kind of matters. So the further and further out you go, the closer to like maybe 2 seconds you can get before you turn it off, and then it'll kind of make it work for you. So we're gonna go ahead. We're outside of 1,000 light seconds, but less than like 3 or 4,000. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna Supercruise overdrive until we get to around 3 seconds of ETA, and you're gonna watch as the Mandalay accelerates very quickly. We're watching that ETA. 4, 5, 4, 3. Turn it off. And as you can see, it's already decelerating, and it settles in right around 8 seconds. Right. So we set ourselves for. Oh, I forgot to set the Supercruise overdrive assist. We set ourselves at that. We kind of let it stabilize, right? And then once the Supercruise overdrive settles at about 7 seconds, we're going to wait. Now, on a big ship, we could already start doing the trick that I'm about to show you, because bigger ships seem to have a much bigger range, right? So we're going to go ahead and do this trick right now, and then we'll talk about some of the different things. For small ships, they're really finicky, so I usually end up waiting until less than 10 light seconds. You're going to bump the throttle up quickly once, and then again to bring the ETA down to 5. And then it creates this kind of weird situation where the Supercruise overdrive is now in a faster mode. So rather than having to crawl your way towards your target, as long as you keep the ship pointed in the right direction, it pulls you out at a much higher speed than you normally would be able to maintain. Does that make sense? So that's kind of how the Supercruise overdrive, or the Supercruise quick drop thing works. You get yourself to around 7 seconds, let your ship stabilize, and then based on what kind of ship you're flying, the large ships and the bigger medium ships, you can generally, as long as you're less than about 100 light seconds away at the time that you start the process, it'll generally work, because the activation zone seems to be a fair bit bigger for those ships than these smaller ships that you can fly. For small ships and the smaller medium ships, you generally want to wait until much closer to around 10 light seconds before you do the little bump the ETA up to 5 trick. And as long as you keep the ship pointed towards your destination, it'll want to drift a little bit. So it will require a little bit of active input from you to keep your ship pointed right at the destination that you're going. But as long as you stay pointed at that and you don't overspeed, it'll generally automatically drop you out as soon as you get close enough. As long as you have it at that 75% and the Supercruise assist is active and on and trying to point you. So that's how all of that kind of works. The last thing we're going to talk about is landing. So one of the things that my friend over at Battle Vortex is, for whatever reason, he seems to be quite impressed by landing. The reason why I'm able to land, let's go ahead and do it. We'll just go ahead and do it. I generally boost until I get pretty close in this ship, because it has a very aggressive thruster setup. Boost until you get to where the slot is pretty close, and then you pop in, throttle down, landing gear down, and then find your slot, and then I just go as quickly as I can towards my landing spot. It takes practice to kind of judge and see how quickly you can move towards things, and it's going to change from ship to ship. Put yourself over the thing here, and down you go. It's that easy. This is not something where I can give you any kind of tips and tricks on how to get quick at landing. It's one of those things that you just have to practice. Because there's a lot of spatial awareness and judgment you have to have in your mind where the landing pad is. Especially when you're going to some of these stations that have some of the smaller stations that don't have a slot for you to go to. So a lot of times you're going to be doing a bunch of flipping around, and you just have to keep in the back of your mind where is the landing pad, especially because if you're trying to be quick about it, a lot of times you're going to be rolling inverted and flipping around. and flipping around and then trying to land on the pad. And the only way you can do that is if you always have in your mind the spatially where that pad is, because if you don't, especially if you don't have head look and all that stuff and you can't look at it, you just have to know where it is. That's not something I can give you a, hey, this is how you do it. You just got to practice it enough to get to the point where you can do that. But a big part of the equation for that is having some kind of intuitive and quick control over your thrusting. So obviously most of us have a joystick for looking around. A lot of people are using a regular throttle, just like this guy is, right? That's fine for 95% of what you're doing, but if you need any kind of precision control, you need to have some kind of way to control all three axes of your thrust, right? And for the joystick, it's really good at forward. Or for the throttle, it's really good at forward, but backwards, left, right, up, and down. I have yet to see a regular style throttle quadrant that has an intuitive and quickly responding and easy to move solution for thrust vectors. Now, most joysticks, like, hold on, this doesn't want to cooperate. Of course it is. I'm in a recording, and you're just going to fight me. Why are you stuck? Get off my graphics card. It's always something. Most joysticks have these extra axes on them that you can move, right? Like this one here and that one there, right? And maybe a slider that you can do. Some will have more, some will have others, but very few of those axes are smooth and set up in a way that makes them easy to move and are also intuitively placed in a way that makes it click with your mind that moving that axis will move you in a direction. Now, you can certainly train yourself to just do that, but I prefer to try to find ways that are more intuitive rather than requiring me to rewire my brain. So for me, I have, after many tries of different ways of doing things, I have settled on the WASD because it's just the most intuitive way as far as my brain works. And for probably most of you, it's probably going to be the same thing. So the last thing I want to cover is the auto landing. I don't necessarily, if you're trying to be fast about things, I don't recommend the auto launch because it's going to put you in a queue. I did go ahead and put an auto launch, automated landing module or whatever it's called. Forget what it's called. I don't know. It's the takeoff and landing, advanced docking computer. I went ahead and popped one on here just to demonstrate it. I would not recommend having that turned on. If you're in a hurry, I would not recommend having that turned on. So I generally have auto launch turned off. I have an auto land turned off because auto land will try to land you on the ground and auto launch will try to automate your departure from the station. But it's going to take a long time, especially if there are other ships also trying to leave. It's going to put you in a queue, and then you're going to have to wait your turn to leave. I don't generally like having to wait for that. The only thing I generally use, even in my large ships, when I'm doing this, is the auto dock function, and I use it in a very specific way. So we're going to go ahead and look at that right now. So let's go ahead and get out of here. We're going to get ourselves turned around, and I'm going to show you leaving the station just as I kind of taught you before. Hopefully there won't be anything in the way. So I'm holding space, press the landing gear key. We start moving forward as quickly as we can. There's nothing in the way, so I'm just going to go ahead and boost out of here now. Just point yourself on your way out. Throttle all the way to full, and then you start heading off and you wait till you get out of your mass lock. As soon as you're out of your mass lock, you frame shift drive and all that kind of cool stuff. So that's leaving the station. So let's go ahead and start heading back towards the station. And the thing I want you to understand about the auto dock system is that it works from various different positions. So you could right now turn on your auto dock. Well, let's go ahead and get our things. Request docking, or request docking. There we go. And as long as you're at 0 throttle, it will automatically start trying to move you to get you through the slot. Now the problem with that is that the process, that just like everything else that the developers have done, they have decided that if you're going to have a benefit, there has to be some kind of detraction, and they have made the process for getting in extremely slow. Now, the great thing is that you can bypass this initial section by, as long as you don't have your throttle set to 0, because that's when the actual auto dock computer turns on, you can fly manually. You see how it's saying slow down for auto dock. The great thing is that if you fly into the slot and once you're inside the station, you turn it on, all of a sudden it becomes a much faster way of docking overall if you don't have the precision to do it the right way. So we'll just fly inside the station. Landing gear turned on, and once you're inside, turn on the auto dock and it will automatically move you to your spot. And this is, you know, if you're not comfortable flinging yourself around inside the station, this is going to be the fastest way for you to land, right? So, well, I ended up hitting somebody, I guess, because, as always, when I'm trying to get things done, there's always something in the way and slowing me down. So let's get our thing paid off. Okay, so that's, we'll try that again, and we'll do that one more time just so you guys can hopefully see the entire process, right? Because I stopped to explain things. And then I also ended up having somebody get in my way, and it made it not look very smooth. So let's try this again. We're gonna hop out of here, and out we go. Full throttle. And then once you're outside of the station, you're ready to go on your merry way. So we're gonna go ahead and wait for the docking. Oh. Where is it? We're gonna wait for the docking thing to become available. All right, so we get our docking request coming in. We're in a hurry. We're trying to hurry up and get where we're going. Just managing our speed, managing our thing. We get inside. Once we're inside, 0 throttle. Auto docking takes over. Automatically deploys our landing gear. Points us towards the slot, and there you go. Now this works on every kind of ship: medium ship, large ship. If you're a lot of times for the bigger large ships like the Beluga or something like that, you might want to go ahead and engage the auto dock outside of the slot, because you have to be really precise with your placement to not hit the slot. But if you're running shields, probably doesn't matter. Just go ahead and go, because once you land, it's going to immediately recharge your shields anyway. So that's the process for fast landing. So. Quick summary of everything we've talked about so far. If you're looking for a relatively intuitive way of getting precise control over your ship, joystick and keyboard, as an analog to mouse and keyboard, is a very good way to go. It gives you precise control over your thrusting directions, forward, backwards, up, down, left, right, all of that. For the Supercruise Assist, you're trying to go full throttle all the way until you get to an ETA of about 7 seconds, at which point you're going to put it into the blue zone, about 75% throttle, and it'll take over and it'll take you nice and easily to your slot. On big ships, you can do anything less than about 100 light seconds. You can pop it up to the 5-second mark, and it will generally get you there as long as you keep yourself pointed straight at the target. For smaller, medium ships and small ships, you generally want to wait till about less than 10 light seconds away, because it's a little bit more finicky about it, and it'll usually shoot you past your target, even if you're trying to control it really well. It's just the zone for it is so small. You really have to wait so you don't overspeed past your target. But as long as you have your speed set to about 5 light seconds, when you turn the Supercruise Assist back on and you keep yourself pointed towards your target, the Supercruise Assist will drop you out at that faster speed, and it shouldn't have much of a problem. So it drastically reduces the amount of time it takes you to get somewhere. For the Supercruise Overdrive, you're generally, for less than 1,000 light seconds, you're looking at a speed of about 10% of the distance that you need to cover before you turn the Supercruise Overdrive off. And that will generally drop you right around 7 or 8 seconds of ETA. Pop yourself back into the 75% speed, and it'll generally settle you right in around 7 or 8 seconds, and then you can do the 5-second drop trick. For anything between 1,000 and say 3,000 or 4,000 light seconds, you're looking for an ETA of about 3 seconds, and then you turn it off. Now that number is going to change depending on the ship that you're flying. Bigger ships might need a little bit more time. It might need a little bit higher time frame because it's not going to decelerate as aggressively as a smaller ship might. For anything past 4,000 or 5,000 light seconds, you just kind of play that by ear. It's going to differ wildly between different ships just because of the way that the deceleration works depending on what ship that you're flying. And then when you reach your destination, when you drop out of hyperspace, if you're landing at a station that has a slot in it, you're going to want to fly through the slot before activating your auto land so that you can minimize the amount of time it takes you to get from where you are into the slot and then the automatic landing. So, yeah, hopefully some of that information was helpful for those of you who are interested in trying to streamline your approach to getting from point A to point B. All of these things that I've said work in any ship that you want to fly. Some of the bigger, more cumbersome ships, you will definitely want to have the auto landing option because you're not going to land a cutter, a fully loaded cutter quickly. You're gonna want the auto land option for that. But for medium and small ships, you can generally do the WASD method, and it works really well. So hopefully that helped. Be sure to click the like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. Also have a PayPal link in the description if you prefer to go outside of the YouTube economy, for those of you who are like that. So again, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to come back for the next video, and I'll see you then.